Okay, take this. I'd like to call the January 24th, 2023 meeting of the REMSCO to order. The first item on the agenda is to have a roll call vote.
When I call your name, please say present. Doug Jacob or Eric Weiss. Chief Grace Cacciola. Present. Chief Stacy Scanlon. Samia McEachin. William Goffin.
Present. Present.
Robert Bristol. Mordecai.
Present.
James Downey.
Present.
Gerald Billboard. David Anchor, he's excused. David Benelli. Mordecai Lax.
Here.
Martina Baccarella. Present. Vincent Baranco. Nancy Benedetto is excused. Arthur Cooper. Robert Krupe.
Here.
Meg Kendall. Here. Manfred Fuchs.
Present.
Sean Graves is excused. Jerry Gumbo. Eugenia Langsa.
Present.
Brian Levinsky.
Present.
Dennis Laurie.
Present.
Mitchell Powell.
Present.
Michael Linehan. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Just for the record, there's no such thing as being excused from the meeting. I mean, it's a politeness that we say, but if you've got to be here, you've got to be here, and you can't be excused according to the bylaws for the meeting. So if you're not here a certain number of times, being excused just says, okay, be good, but there's no such official thing. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the approval of the April 19th meeting. The agenda was sent out. Are there any corrections? Any comments? Hearing none, a motion to approve the meeting. The minutes are in order. Second. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? Hearing none, we will mark them as being unanimous. Okay. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the death of 4 of our long-term providers. We tried to do this at the last meeting, but there was no quorum, so that we couldn't put it officially on the record. I'd like to do it tonight. I'm in no particular order. I'd like to recognize passing of Joseph Marcelino, of Stuart Rosenhaus, of Michael Benny, and of Robert Dories. This is all from either volunteers or Fidney and others. And we'll take a few moments of silence in their memory. Thank you very much. The next item is the correspondence report. And I'm going to take this. We do need some votes on items that are in the correspondence report. So we will take it from your end, and we'll vote on them now on those items that you have highlighted there. So we received a letter from Grace Cacciola, Fidney EMS, requesting that Chief John Nevins replace Chief Stacy Scanlon on the ambulance committee and at regional council meetings. This was approved by the ambulance committee, am I correct?
Yes.
And it's voted to REMSCO for approval.
Correct.
Yes.
Motion to accept John Evans as the FY appointee, replacing Stacy Scanlon.
Thank you very much. Actually, it doesn't need a motion because it's coming in seconded from them. Are there any objections? Do you have an objection?
No, no objection. Question. These people that are being brought up for membership on REMSCO, are they New York City residents?
Yes.
The answer I've heard twice was yes.
Okay.
He's a Staten Island resident.
New York City. So
Yeah.
that's not how it works. Until they succeed in going to
Clarify
Jersey.
which borough
Until they succeed in going to
Yeah,
Jersey.
yeah,
yeah.
right.
That won't happen.
Next, a letter and resume were received from the Greater New York Hospital Association appointing Andrew Dahl as GNYHA primary representation of REMSCO. The appointment is to replace Samia McEachin, I apologize for mispronouncing names. As per an additional email received from Allison Burke, this too is a seconded motion from the Ambulance Committee?
No.
No, this is not.
No.
Okay, so this comes here for the first time. So here we need a motion.
Make a motion to accept.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Mark it as unanimous. Michael Vatch is nominating himself for one of the downstate New York Ambulance Association seats on REMSCO. He is a New York City resident. Okay, this also needs a seconded, this is not a seconded motion, so therefore we need,
20%.
yes.
Agency or seats that are not at large, the organization sends in their letter of endorsement.
Well, this isn't the individual, the downstate New York Ambulance Association.
Okay, but you said Mike Vatch.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I imagine that he nominated himself as the downstate New York Ambulance Association person. Does he work for them?
I didn't know it still existed.
Yeah, so that's what I understand.
Yeah, that's what I
Downstate New
understand.
York.
too.
Until we get something from the whole New York State organization,
I mean,
Onion.
So you don't want, you think that we should wait with him?
No, I think that we need to fill the seats and the New York City residents. I cannot imagine anybody else that Onion would put here.
No, anyway, but anyone can not make a nomination, so. Is there any nominations? For Michael Vatch?
He should be nominated.
Okay, your nomination.
So his nomination wasn't.
Doesn't make a difference. You can nominate someone.
I'm saying you want someone else instead of Mike Vatch.
Is there a second?
Thanks.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, anyone opposed? Mark is unanimous. Michael Vatch is nominating Michael Riola for one of the downstate New York Ambulance Association seats on REMSCO. He's a New York City resident.
Mike is here.
Hmm?
Mike is here. He's hoping that you find a reason not to appoint him.
We'll have coffee next time.
Better.
let's see, but we've got Scott and
This is, who
Yeah.
sees this? Yeah.
Okay, so we have two people to fill one seat. Is that correct?
I believe that Mike is going to be,
Did he nominate for both in an attempt to have both voted on?
That's why I was,
I think that
Confused.
Mike is
One is primary, one
the
is alternate.
primary
or-
and Mike Batch is the alternate. Sorry, we should have made it clear in.
What? Don't you have open at large seats?
We cannot just.
We're gonna
nominate
go, we're
people.
gonna, no, have large seats, we're gonna go to later on. We have,
I understand, but I'm saying if there's more seats open, we can nominate for an at-large position.
the town main committee for that, we'll have to get to that
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, at-large seats are nominating. committee.
Yeah. This time we can do that later on too.
Yeah, I mean, these are specific to.
Okay, so which is which? Who's the primary and who's the, okay. So Mike Riola is the primary and we,
Oh, okay, no, sorry. They're both going to vacant primary seats. We have two vacant primary seats. The one seat that is filled by Morty Lax, and he's an alternate seat. So these are both the primary seats.
okay,
I'm sorry.
So Mike is
That's
open,
okay.
not Mike is open.
so do we have a motion for Michael Riola?
motion,
Second, any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Mark it as unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike.
And the following members requested to be excused. Nancy Benedetto, okay.
The rest of this is gonna be in the minutes, but you can take a look.
Is there anything here that's worth reading? Into the minutes, or you just send it along?
We can send it along. I just,
There are pages and pages and pages here of stuff that no one's interested in.
it's from April, so. Oh, okay. There are a few things that just require
The
business.
yellow things, I should maybe highlight. read them out?
Yeah.
Okay. So the full multiple page communications report will be, correspondence will be sent, but there are a few items that we need to talk about here. The REMSCO filed a Freedom of Information request, a FOIL request, talking about course sponsorship territory inquiry. From the lawyers from New York State Department of Health, okay, that the FOIL request will be delayed. They need lawyers to tell you that it's going to be delayed, and they're unable to respond to the request because a diligent search of responsive documents is still being conducted. The newest estimated date is February 8th. This is the fourth delay highlighted.
This is from May 10th, and this was a request for information as to what did they base the expansion of every course sponsor into the entire state of New York. We just wanted to know how they could just expand everybody's territory.
So stand by for a delay that will happen again because they won't have an answer for you.
Yeah. I have a feeling that we're going to be delayed until the Department of Health has written a policy to justify what they did. And I mean, that's fine. It's just, to me, this is a joke. So.
Okay, we have received various course sponsor renewal applications. There's a long list here. Okay, Fidney, D&H, Emergency Medical Training, Borough Manhattan Community College, Cola EMT Training, Emergency Aid Training, Emergency Care Programs, Beach Fire Department, Kingsborough Community College, Montefiore Medical Center, NYPD, SU, RTI Training, Staten Island EMT, St. John University Training Institute for Medical Emergencies, and so on. So, and Universal Emergency Care. All applications appear complete for documentation purposes. Requires REMSCO recommendation to approve. We need a motion to approve all these agencies. Okay, is there a second? Okay, is there a discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, we'll mark them as being unanimous. That, I think, is all, end of all the highlighted stuff. And this will be distributed for your reading pleasure.
And just to let you know, within the correspondence is a list of all the New York State notice.
Oh, wait, that I have to do, that I should read into the minutes. That's a different thing. That's yet another list.
Yeah, it's on the
All right, separate piece of
fourth
paper. I got it. New York State DOH enforcement. Actually, this is coming out of the REMAC report. Who is doing the REMAC report? Nobody, I guess me. Okay, so New York State DOH enforcements, John Kirk, Ramsey, New Jersey, certification suspended for a year. Timothy Rogers, Staten Island, EMT, certification suspended for 1 year. Michael Sudol from Massabeth, certification revoked as December 21st. And there is, if you're interested in finding all about enforcement actions, there's a link which will also be included in your minutes. That's the state. We're going to hear about the LMS a little later, so I'm going to skip that part. And the QA/QI committee is seeking members. Both of REMSCO and of REMAC. The members are appointed by the chairs of REMSCO and REMAC respectively, but we're looking for more members. So if you are interested in serving on QAQI, which supposedly meets once a month. Okay, it would be very useful to have additional people join us for these very important discussions. And
Can I just add to that?
you
We
certainly may.
need 2 physicians, 1 nurse. I don't know if you're able to, she's looking around. We do need to get more nurses
We
on
do
this
definitely
committee.
do.
We really do. It's part of Article 30, we have to have an RN on there. And 1 paramedic, and they have to be members of either REMAC or REMSCO.
So please step right up there and volunteer. We'll speak to you afterwards. Okay, and the next REMAC meeting will be held February 14th, so that includes the REMAC report as well. Skipping right ahead. We now move to the staff report. Scott,
Yes, good evening. So back in November, REMSCO received the FEMA funds around 154,000 for the COVID-19 mutual aid activation of the volunteer ambulance resources during 2020. These funds were distributed to squads that participated and completed the paperwork. Second round of FEMA relief for COVID-19 related activation totaling around 130,000 have been submitted in December and is currently under FEMA internal review. I want to have a special thanks to Jerry Gelbart, Director of District 18 NYC, whose experience working at FEMA has been invaluable in getting these projects across the finish line. Also, a special thank you to Central Park Medical Unit, who brought this opportunity to our attention and laid down the initial groundwork with New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. We also received new batches of intranasal Narcan. These are the 0.1 milliliter for 4 milligram IN Narcan. Agencies that need Narcan, please reach out to REMSCO to arrange pickup. You can email directly to inquiries@nycremsco.org. Alternatively, volunteer agencies who cannot travel to Manhattan, once again, with the assistance of NYC District 4 Chair Jim Downey, can arrange pickup of IN Narcan from Jim as well. And the report.
any questions? Thank you very much. We now move to the program agency update. Marie.
The program agency has been very active, both here in the city and in New York State. We actually have set up, convinced the State EMS Council to create a tag that reports to the State EMS Council made up of so that we can discuss different issues affecting our regions and needs are met. One of the other things, our contracts were finally all executed as of like Friday. You know, we're sending in vouchers from July. So hopefully we'll be getting that money soon. One of the other things that we've sent out, I don't know if we sent it out to REMAC or to all the committees, a list of state council committees.
It was just REMAC.
Okay, we're gonna be sending out to REMSCO also a list of all the state EMS council subcommittees. They're open to new members. And sometimes they're virtual, sometimes they want you to go up there, which really is a pain. But it's a good idea if you have the time, if you're willing to go up to Albany to see how state council works, to get yourself on these committees and be there when the decisions are being made, when the concepts are being discussed. And the more people from New York City, the better. Should try and send more fire department people down there. So up there.
I believe they just sent out, like yesterday, of the list of all the current committee members. They're almost finished with this round of committee members. So there's a new chair of the,
Yes,
and he sent out his list. I got it yesterday. Did you get it?
I probably did get it. I'm not sure. But I mean, they are able to add members. They
Right.
have a certain formula that you have to have at least 50% state council actual members, and the other 50% can be outside members. I don't know if it's exactly that. But if you're interested in seeing, you know, who's making the rules for you, you know, be part of the rule makers and just shake them up a little.
Absolutely. It's worth going up there just for that.
Honestly, the last meeting, I went up there and now I'm part of the finance committee. And I was able to change their recommendation and increase funding for program agency by 41%. So you can make a difference. Whether the ultimate change actually comes out of the governor's office is, who knows? But if we don't make a start, then nothing's going to happen. And they're still fighting for one set of protocols. They're going to try that again on us. And they also don't want us to credential our paramedics, which I read Article 30, and we have the authority to do that. And that's my next battle. I'm not really looking forward to going up in February. So, but you'll be there to back me up. And you'll be there. Good.
I'll go.
That's my report for now.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we now have a report from the ambulance committee.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the ambulance committee met right before this meeting at 5 o'clock. And we discussed a couple of things. One of them was we received a letter from Grace Cacciola from FDNY EMS requesting chief. Okay. Are we gonna?
We just did vote on that already.
No, we're gonna vote on-
Excuse me, can you speak up just a bit? I'm having a little trouble hearing.
Sure.
Thank you.
We did that already, that stuff, so you can skip that. Talk about the tags.
Okay, yeah, the tag committee did meet. Vinnie Barranco was not in, so Jerry Gelbart filled us in. We're coming closer to the tags. And they they have FDNY vendors and Jerry, where did we get them from?
The security stickers.
Oh.
Stickers from the,
We sourced the stickers from the same vendor that New York City FDNY was. Keep the cost down and not being vendor. Companies called Weldon, Williams.
okay, and that's coming soon, right?
What?
The stickers, we're gonna do.
Now we have to vote on approving them and requesting a budget from.
Yes, okay,
That we can do now.
okay.
Make a motion that REMSCO recommends to the board of directors they spend the money. So
We're
make such a
gonna
motion.
make a
Let me,
motion.
let me just clarify, the security stickers, we've had security stickers after 9/11. They're outdated, so Jerry had a tag with Vinnie to find out how we can create new security stickers. And the retention for the stickers they were requested by NYPD to be a visible validation of non-municipal vehicles in case of a disaster. So that if there's a staging or whatever, if you don't have a sticker, it's to protect everyone that's going into and out of the scene. So you have a New York City vendor for our security stickers. It's going to have a QR code. Right now, we're not going to be able to use them for tracking, but there is the ability in there, if we get more funding, to be able to actually track vehicles where they're going into and out of a scene. The price, I'm not sure, it's a few $1,000s for 5,000 of them, and $1,600.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to get the approval from the board, because they're the ones that actually release the funds. So we're bringing it here to you to see if you think that it's worthy of going forward to be approved. And then if this committee recommends approval, we will bring it to the board of directors and get the money for it to go forward.
Is the procedure for distributing them going to be similar to the one in the past?
It will, it's still being tweaked because there are some pieces that are not relevant anymore. Plus the security of them, the placement of them has to be changed, and the tracking and distribution. But the same procedure, if it's marked, it's gonna have to be.
Could we have a motion to recommend to the board of directors to spend the money? Second. Motion second. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Please mark this being unanimous.
There was no new determination of public need, and there was also no new transfer of operating authority.
There was one other thing. The ambulance committee is looking for more business. So if you have any ideas for the ambulance committee to discuss or to work on, please suggest them to our chair. She doesn't have enough work.
There was one other thing, the diversion
Okay.
discussion.
What's the number of diversions? Report.
Hmm?
Want to report about the diversion issue?
You do- Okay,
One of the two of you.
okay. Diversion. We started talking about diversion and how it's used in New York City. And Rob Bristol mentioned to us that Ryan Greenberg had also reached out to NYSEM about diversion and how that could be communicated out to non-municipal ambulances. And actually, we're going to speak to you, Grace, just to get some beginning information to see if it's even a worthwhile topic for us to look into, to see if we can have any effect on it, just to see where we can go with it. So it's just brand new, and just wanted to let everyone know. If anyone's interested in joining our tags, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else? Any questions for the ambulance committee? Thank you very much. We now move to training and education.
Training and has been a little busy.
A lot busy.
So, first and foremost, before really going into what's been done, I'm sure everybody's aware that the new LMS is up and running. There was a tremendous amount of work, which is an understatement, that went into the back end of getting this thing up and running. Part of the delay in getting this whole thing out and launching the protocol updates this year was to make sure that the entire back end was built to also be able to accommodate the new paramedic refresher via CME, eliminating the refresher exam for paramedics. And the first thank you goes to Joe Ranieri, who spent an inordinate amount of time going back and forth between the vendor, many hours, making sure that this thing was up and running, and so that when we finally pushed the button and launched it, it was able to run without any problem. So thank you, Joe. Generally, I don't like to point out specific people on committees. Obviously, I want to thank the folks on training and ed that put the update together. There are two people that actually spent a lot of time on the technical side of the LMS. That's Robbie Zeitz and Megan Williams. So I just wanted to recognize them as well. Okay, so down to the meat and potatoes of this. So the LMS itself is currently running, and it did not crash with the amount of people that have logged in, which in and of itself was a little bit of a concern that we had. So that impressed us. In terms of detail, so there are about 1,200 providers from this region currently registered. That's besides those that were all imported from the state's Vital Signs Academy that had Vital Signs Academy accounts. So we're talking about close to 10,000 providers in the region. So while they are technically imported into the back end of our system, until they actually register and sign in, affiliate themselves with an agency and put down their level of certification, they're not actually registered within the system specifically. Over 800 providers have completed the update, combination of BLS and ALS. Close to 1,100 medics are enrolled in the CME refresher pathway and have been uploading hundreds and hundreds of hours of CME. Just if you could please take back to your agency training coordinators to please make sure that you're going in, review the CME, make sure you approve. Everything has to be vetted, approved before it counts in their CME pathway. That time isn't going to count for them until then. So that's a pretty big lift. I think this first 3 to 6 months is probably going to be somewhat tedious for the agency training coordinators, but once all of the backlog and people uploading their CME that has happened takes place, I think that work is going to ease up and it's just going to become regular maintenance. The biggest thing that we like to encourage at this point is for CME that is hosted at various agencies. If you could put it through the LMS, they can register through the LMS for your CME. All that time will end up going directly into the medic's transcripts and count towards their CME time, and all you have to do is roster it. So that's another huge benefit of the program. So there are a couple of great sources of information that we have so far. The post test actually has already identified some issues with stroke we're having with regional providers, mostly on the BLS side and on the ALS side. It's abundantly clear without going into detail that there's still some work that needs to be done on that. I forwarded that information to QA and to REMAC so that that discussion we had. The going theory today is that it's a bigger issue on the BLS and the ALS side specifically is because EMTs are taught in Cincinnati in EMT schools. We have new providers, and we know that the round door providers nowadays, the amount of new providers flooding the system, although not as big a flood as we would like, they're not learning the SLAMS assessment in school. So that's on the agencies. So agencies really have to buckle down on new onboards and include that in their onboard training. I think that's probably one of the biggest deficits. We are able to run reports on information by agency, so we're going to do that so we can drill down further and help validate whether that's the case or not, but that's the going assumption at the moment. The survey, so the survey post mandatory component in order to get your certificate. So forcing everybody, that survey has actually gotten us a lot of great information. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. I think that the couple of biggest key things that people like is the fact that it's online. It's relatively easy to navigate. There are some quirks that we're working on with the vendor. Some of what we're doing, so some of the way things are being done right now is by workaround. Bless you. Yeah, so some of the negatives. So that was the biggest one. I think they liked it. It's asynchronous. They can do whatever they want. They can stop and go. They can go back and reference the information. I think that they appreciate that. The medics like that it's feeding directly into their CME. For the most part, they're liking that the update was concise, to the point. There are a couple of quirks which we're working on, and there's actually a list of that constructive feedback. A majority of it has to do with the site itself that we've taken back to the vendor. For example, the post test doesn't tell you what you got wrong. Right, so and there's not even an option for us to make it do that. So while it's providing us a lot of information, the provider that's trying to complete the test that originally had 100% requirement passing score is problematic. If you don't know what you did wrong, you can't go back and see what you did wrong and relearn it and get it right, which it enables you to do over and over. So we lowered the pass rate for the medic exam from 100%, so that it enables you to get a couple of wrong. The EMT test is only 11 questions, so that wasn't as big of a deal. So far, I think those are the biggest gripes that people had. There were a couple of protocol questions. It's apparent that although they do like the fact that they can do this on their own, some providers are asking for a venue. They're missing the fact that there's, in a classroom, an opportunity to ask questions. So we're going to be we're working on hosting a town hall meeting that hopefully will take place sometime at the beginning of November, so that there's a good QA opportunity for people to ask those questions. Dr. Schenker will be on. I'm hoping Dr. Lai will join as well as Dr. Barbara. And I think that's where we're at with the LMS itself. In terms of the rest of the work that Training and Ed has been doing, now that we have this LMS, one of the things we want to do is take some of the old training that was on the old LMS, see what's still relevant, not obsolete, and convert that so that it can be uploaded onto this platform. And we're looking to create new CME opportunities, which I requested of REMAC. And we're going to be exploring the use of the LMS by course sponsors. We're not sure where that need exists other than running CMEs today, but that's basically where that is at. Other than that, I think the only other big component that I forgot to mention in the thank yous was the tremendous collaboration and again, more time that Joe Ranieri put in working with the fire department's team. I know that they're doing the update through this LMS as well. In fact, the overwhelming amount of it, probably about 50% of people have done it so far are fire department folks. So that's nice to see. Kevin Ward, the REMAC liaison, Rob Fassino, who works alongside with him, have been spending a lot of time making sure that things are working smoothly on the fire department side, but while at the same time making sure that the pathway for refresher is working properly. Nobody has submitted a request yet for credentialing through it, but I think we'll probably be there soon. Extensions were made to people's certifications for those who expired between January and the deadline to complete the update, which is March 1st, so that nobody will be able to expire as a result of this delay. And Kevin has been working to make sure that he sees these people through. I think I've covered it all. Any questions? There probably are some. Yeah.
Is there a dashboard of some sorts where each provider can check to see exactly what their status is?
Yeah.
How much?
Yeah, so providers, so one of the other things Joe did is make us a series of tutorials. And the tutorials are available through the links that are in the advisories, a lot of clickable links in the advisories that walk people to all of these resources, both to sign up, register. It walks them through exactly how to utilize the pathway, shows them exactly how to utilize it, what they have left, what they still need to do, and what the various steps are. Yeah.
Any other questions? Dr. Cooper?
Just thank you, Chair Langston. I've been privileged to be part of these bodies for more than 30 years now. And so I have a, hopefully a reasonably long perspective on EMS education. Done a ton of it myself personally. At one time, I was responsible for personally giving all the paramedics in Manhattan and Queens their pediatric education. So I think I have a reasonable handle on the educational process. But the reason I'm raising my voice now is because I'm a little concerned as time has gone by, and I think we all recognize this, that we've really gotten further and further and further away from physician involvement in EMS education. There was a time, when the role of the medical director in an educational program was considered really important. While I recognize that COVID and electronic media and Zoom and everything else has changed the world and made it possible for us to do things we could never do before, at the same time, there's little opportunity for, interaction between EMS students and EMS medical direction. There's call review and stuff like that, post haste and so on, which is all good. But I'm just wondering if there might be some role, and maybe T&E could take this up, for setting up town hall sessions with EMS medical directors. You could focus one on cardiac, one on pulmonary, one on orthopedics, one on peds, one on this, that, the other thing, trauma, so on, so that people would have an opportunity to have their questions answered really one-on-one by an expert in the field. I think that's an innovation that we could easily provide, to our providers. And I think it would really enhance their, everyone's education to do that. I think anybody who does a lot of EMS teaching, and that doesn't just include me and other medical directors, but most everybody around this room, you all know that you all know how much more you learn about a subject when you're actually teaching it. And one of the things that I used to love about, I don't get asked, I'm an old guy, I don't get asked too much to teach anymore. Sorry. Call me back in 5 minutes, please. I don't get asked to teach a whole lot more, but I can tell you that some of the toughest questions I've ever been asked by students, about a physiological process, is by my EMS students, okay, and not just paramedic students at the basic level, and to be able to articulate an answer that explains a process, in simple terms. And I don't mean that the students are simple. I mean that they haven't had 100 years of education to get the vocabulary, to sort of reduce a physiologic concept to simple terms that people can understand and apply, I think is, as something that benefits all of us as teachers. So I just really like to see us, if we can't find a way to involve our regional, EMS medical director experts in teaching to a greater extent, understanding that, things ain't the way they used to be. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly embrace everything you just said. And I hope that you can repeat that at the next REMAC meeting and help recruit some of the physicians.
Be happy to do that, just hope you'll be at the next REMAC meeting to remind me. You know, your memory gets a little.
I've been asking, I'm all for it. This platform is not looking to replace the physicians, on the contrary, so
Oh, no.
it's looking to support them.
Absolutely.
And this now gives us a platform to be able to record all of that directly into people's CME records. So
And there was no suggestion.
no,
on
no,
my
I
part
wasn't
that that the
insinuating it
case.
was,
Yeah.
but on the contrary, we really are looking for that physician involvement as well.
Dr. Cooper, there's an ancient Talmudic saying that says, I have learned from my teachers and I've learned from my colleagues, but I've learned from my students most of all.
Correct,
So,
correct. Well,
Yes.
thank you to our, parliamentarian and Talmudic expert.
Question?
The data of the personnel in the region that you're pushing out to, is there a validation tool to ensure that we've captured everyone in the region, or that? Because originally it was the agency providing the data to REMSCO, but now is there a validation tool to make sure that all of our providers actually?
So not 100%. That's one of the pitfalls that we have. It's similar to before. There's no way really to ensure that we have all of that data. It's still going to rest on the agencies. And this is really just meant to help facilitate that. So while we hope that over time, especially over the first year, or at the very least, the first refresher cycle for paramedics, we'll have all that in the system. We're hoping that it becomes commonplace. I don't know if there's a policy, maybe a regional policy that needs to be put in place to ensure that agencies have that as a standard for their folks. Not 100%.
The second part is, you mentioned the LMS and doing or conducting CMEs through that. The agencies in the region that have their own LMS and records management system combined, is there something that will permit the agency to retrieve that information, get it to you? So all of that internal education that's credentialable can make it to that person's record.
All right, so that is a question that I will pass off to Joe. You want to take that one?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay. For the agencies that retain their own records management system and LMS to conduct their own internal education, is there a pathway to retrieve or export an agency's data and get it to you, meaning REMSCO, so it could be uploaded into the REMSCO LMS, so we don't lose the credentialing of what these people have already done or may continue to do internal to their organization?
Are you referring to like some sort of bulk upload or API?
Perhaps, I mean, basically their agencies, I'm sure the fire department included, in Northwell, they have their own LMS and they do their own internal education. There has to be a mechanism to get that data up to REMSCO, so those people can be credited for the hours that they've done education external of the REMSCO LMS.
Or perhaps, Joe, let me just tag on to that, apropos our discussion before, maybe, is there a simpler way than doing line by line sort of entries in the LMS, perhaps an Excel format that can be uploaded and accepted by personnel?
Or a bulk hours put in,
Or an
that the training
interface.
coordinator from XYZ agency certifies that this member has 100 hours of agency included CME, so that it could count towards their total without each individual certificate having to be uploaded, or rather.
So the way the system is currently set up, right, the training coordinators ultimately have the majority control of pushing the REMAC credentialing process forward. So some of those may include, so part of what occurs at the end is that a training coordinator has to submit a attestation indicating, basically signing off, yep, I reviewed all this paramedics credentials and they are good. Now, so with that attestation function, there is the ability to upload an attachment. So in the interim, for some folks that maybe, right, they have all their stuff done and they want to do sort of a bulk upload, the training coordinator may if something is missing out of that person's profile, the training coordinator may be able to upload that on that person's behalf. So there's a couple of tools that they can use to do that. So if they use the additional training tool, they could, now I would recommend that if you're going to go that route, that you at least separate out the category A and the category B. So that this way, when the REMAC liaison audits the record, because when he goes into the student's record and looks at their transcript, it's not going to show all the different trainings they did. It's going to show, right, let's say you do upload category A CME for a provider. Right, you're going to upload all their certificates and it's going to add up to that 36 hours. All right, so you have the capability to do that. Just make sure you upload all their certificates to back it up so that when Kevin Ward looks at their profile, it's going to show one upload that's going to say 36 hours, category A CME. And then at least when he goes and checks the certificates are all there.
So when they do that, they're able to attach multiple files at one time. So like they
It
put
only
in
allows them
category
to
A.
attach one file, but you know, most
So
PDF
you would have
viewers
to
allow you
combine
files
PDFs.
together and
Okay.
just submit it as a single upload.
Fair enough.
Now, ideally, we would like to get away from that. That's something I would only really do for paramedics that, they're expiring in the next couple of months. The idea is that when they start new, they are uploading things continuously, because eventually the idea is that this system's going to track the hours as you go. And the CME requirements will likely change over time. And some of this stuff may change. So we want to, not make it so that people get into the habit of doing things the easy way, and then we have to go back and do it all again.
The onus on the upload of the CME records really is on the individual provider. It's on the agency training coordinators to vet it. But the maintenance of those CME records has always been on the provider. This is just giving them a place to do that. That's all time.
But I just on the private, like for-profit sectors, like on the onus is on the provider. I think what Jerry's getting at is the volunteers try to make it easier for the providers, so they take some of that onus onto themselves
No,
of maintaining the records.
No, I was referring to the fact that there are agencies here that maintain their own LMS.
Yeah.
And they have to do their own internal training. So basically, there's a record at each agency of all this training that's being done internally. So either a certificate or something has to be given
To be generated for each of those trainings and attributed to category A or
Let
B.
me paint this picture a little bit differently. We're trying to mimic what National Registry is doing. Right? It's a similar process, but those of you who are familiar with how you're uploading records for National Registry, similar concept. That's the idea here. Right? Your agency folks aren't going in, your agency coordinators aren't going in and doing that, the training officers. It's the provider. Provider's uploading their time, training officer hits a button at the end. Yeah, they're good. That's the idea here. And what Joe I think is alluding to here is this first round, especially for the medics. Let's say in the next 2-3 months, somebody's got 65 out of their 72 hours done. Sitting and uploading 65 individual certificates doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense right now. But you know what? For this first time, just to get the process going, print up the or maybe separate it, because it does track the venue, whether it's category A, category B. Eventually, we'll drill down even further and count the hours for them. Is separated into those two, and just do a transcript printout and upload. Let the provider download it, upload half of the transcript of category A, the other half of B, and now all that time is in there in one shot. Going forward, it's going to need to count it as it goes. It's literally going to count the time under the vendors. The vendors creating that breakdown for us.
Okay.
The idea is just to keep in mind that, the CNC committee, now that we have this process in place, right now we have these very broad categories of CME hours.
It's going to narrow.
Right? The CNC committee may decide to narrow that and kind of doing these bulk uploads. And if that process moves forward, will eventually become more work. And you're gonna have to go back and collect people's records and things of that nature. So I would just be very cognizant of, if you have medics that are not expiring for another year or two, slowly upload their records. I'm not asking you, it doesn't all have to be done now, they're not expiring now.
So the providers who already have LMS accounts through our individual agencies can actually take a screenshot of their current dashboard and upload it into the current system So the coordinators can see everything and not have to look it up themselves.
Yeah.
And just utilize that. So
Correct.
I think that would be the best thing, is just take a
That's for the short
screenshot.
term, yes, 100%. That's for the short term. For the long term, obviously, we want people uploading their stuff as they go, but for right now, yeah.
And
I mean,
Chief,
you gotta see my email. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah,
submissions.
because you don't want each individual
No.
certificate.
Over
That's
time,
crazy.
yes, but today, for all the backlog from last 3 years now.
Just a copy of the dashboard, a screenshot of the dashboard.
Yeah, and split between category A and B, so that later when Kevin has to sort things out, he's,
Right, well, not just for Kevin, for everyone doing.
well, for everybody,
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
And the training coordinator and the ALS coordinators are all aware of the process. So we've already had separate meetings and all that's been squared away with them. They know. what to do.
If you're hosting CMEs, 1 second, Jim, if you're hosting CMEs, even if it's internal, if it's registered as an event in this LMS, all you have to do is roster it afterwards and check off who attended. All those people now, you don't need certificates, nothing. It's all automatically sitting in their training record now.
If it's done, is there a way to get a certificate back out of it?
Yes.
Using the National Registry or something?
Yep.
So all the training coordinators have been trained up on, that's been part of the training, is we show them how to create events in the system. And you could even do a post. Let's say you held a CME last week, you want to report it in the system this week. You can go in, create the event for the past, re-register your folks as they already attended. You have your attendance sheet. And you can upload the attendance sheet as a resource that attaches it to the event. That's the backup, right? You have everybody sign in for any auditing purposes, but you as the training coordinator, you as the event coordinator are uploading the event. And then once you submit, let's say you have 20 people attend, you just mark them all as attended, you hit submit, it can generate a certificate for them. So you could pick out the certificate if it's a category A CME that they're getting or category B, right? Because that's the two main categories we care about for the most part. So you can indicate what type of certificate they should, what type of REMAC CME you want it to say on the certificate. And so you pick the right certificate, and you can attach it to the event, say, yep, they get a certificate for this event, mark them all as attended, you hit submit, and it automatically goes into everybody's transcripts. And they get notified that it's been done so. And when they log in, it'll appear on their dashboard saying you attended this event, you've been given credit for it. And it'll send them a link asking them if they want to get feedback on your event. To tell you I'm not expanding your event.
That will make everybody's life easy, regardless of what age. The waiting patiently for a long time.
Who got notice that they have to do the protocol update? You said that you downloaded from Vital Signs Academy and preloaded them. Did REMSCO notify anybody else? Individuals?
REMSCO notified any individuals for whom they had contact information, right? Anybody that's on the listserv. Otherwise, it went out to the agencies.
Okay, so just the agencies got it.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's gonna be changing, because once we get all the email
Right.
addresses, we'll be able to go.
Once everybody's in the system, we can even say, hey, there's a new REMAC advisory. Hey, providers, there's a new REMAC advisory. Check the box here that you saw it.
And I believe Kevin said he sent out close to 5,000.
Right, he used his list as well.
Anyone who had included their email in any of the past exams we've given,
Yeah.
he sent out the advisory too.
Yeah, the medics are definitely seeing, there's 1,100 medics that have already started uploading CME records.
And this is such a great opportunity for CME. We're going to be exposing our providers to hopefully more CME that they can pick and choose from, not just from our region, but obviously the entire state, the Vital Signs system.
We're going to learn a lot about this process over time. We know that the next half year especially is going to be a big learning process. We're in close contact with the vendor. And even Friday and Sunday night before the launch on the holiday, weekend, we were on the phone with the vendor. They're working with us and taking our input.
Is the Vital Signs Academy online stuff transitioning into our LMS or no?
So you're talking
Yes.
about courses that were already.
Or courses completed from this point forward, would they?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so they're linked. They're
Okay,
linked.
all right, that's what I want.
Essentially, they sit on the same system. That's
Okay.
why if you try to create an account with our system using the same email address you
had-
have for Vital Signs, it
yeah.
tells you this email is already in. You go, what the hell? I wish they would make it more intuitive to say you've already got a collaboration account under Vital Signs. I wish they would do that. We asked them to do that, but that is kind of one of the benefits of their system is that there are providers that have already indicated that in addition to vital signs, they're already basically use that same collaboration account for something else that they do. And now all three of their accounts, it's just one login and they just bounce between the sites. It's one transcript that they keep track of.
If you go into your profile on the bottom, at the very bottom of your profile tab, there's a toggle, there's a drop-down toggle. You could switch between your various collaboration accounts. You can switch between the state's vital signs, ours, and if you're registered for any other because you took a class, somebody else in the state that's
That utilizes that element. Okay. Very good.
And any courses, we have a bunch of courses. The majority of our course catalog right now are courses from vital signs. So when we create courses, we can indicate if we want to make them shareable. And it shares it across platforms. So like our protocol updates, they're on the Vital Signs Academy course catalog. Actually, no, the current ones are not.
The old one is.
The old one is, but the current one is not. But there's a lot of courses that are on their system on our account right now. And as we create more CMEs that are internal, the T&E is going to create them. We'll make them available, and then. Folks at Finger Lakes, they want to get stroke training, they can take a course that we developed downstate and they can get the credit for it.
If there are a lot more questions, Joe and I will be, at least I will, and hopefully Joe will join me and, we can set up a session. People want, an opportunity for more Q&A.
I just wanted to let everybody, I wanted to acknowledge the New York State Department of Health because this is their LMS and they created portals for the regions to be able to seat themselves on their LMS and expand our roles. We've been paying for our piece of it and for the improvements to the LMS. We've made payments for that too, but we couldn't have done it without Ryan Greenberg and the New York State Department of Health, EMS.
Okay,
I'm done.
one little correct, you have one sentence?
I'm done.
You're done. Well, actually not. Morty had spent some time listing and acknowledging the members of his committee who have put in all the work to get this LMS. He neglected to mention one very important person, that is himself. I think REMSCO owes Morty a tremendous debt of gratitude. Okay, moving along, the REMAC report we gave before, Quality Improvement Committee.
There really isn't any report, right, for QA? Except for your.
No, so the QA committee is scheduled to meet next week on the 1st. So we just sent out the meeting calendar for the year. And as Marie stated before, we have a couple of vacancies on the committee. We have one paramedic vacancy, one nurse vacancy, and a MD vacancy. So folks that are interested in, doing some studies in this, EMS related studies in the city, QA committee is where to be for that. And a lot of the things we do is we take the data, we look at it, and we try to push out improvements, just as what we did during our last study regarding STEMI and stroke. So looking for some committed folks to get some work done.
Thank you. State EMS Council report.
Okay, so we briefly go through the REMSCO's CNAC report. At the last meeting, it was agreed that there would be a regional program agencies tag form between all 18 REMSCO representatives who would provide status reports at each REMSCO meeting. All the New York City protocol revisions submitted to the state, which were approved. The Finance Committee actually made a recommendation to the New York State EMS projected budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. And the funding levels that were recommended were actually approved by REMSCO for submission to the governor. The breakdown is as follows. Training education, reimbursement $10,200,000, represents a 51% increase. The region has counselors, $500,000 is 11% increase. EMS permanent agencies, $5 million, 48% increase. The total budget increase $15,700,000. There were 4 appeals that take it up. One was the Bay Community Volunteer Ambulance Corps. You see REMSCO recommendation for denying expansion is supported. The Glen Oaks Volunteer Ambulance Corps. You see REMSCO recommendation approving expansion is supported. Forest Hills Volunteer Ambulance Corps. You see REMSCO recommendation approving expansion is supported. With the stipulation that usually the volunteers, Forest Hills volunteers split the operating territories in question. similar fashion, the original volunteer ambulance corps, they take your senior REMSCO recommendations, we expect to support, again, stipulation that originally the volleys be partially volleys split the operating territories in question. And by the way, this was not forced upon ourselves originally. The nice part of the story, in case I was gentleman's agreement, they gave them decided time before SEMSCO met. Okay, so we should avoid your actions. EMS children, I think we'll be reviewing EMS pediatric medication age stage for dosing, those issues around that. Pediatric CPAP, BiPAP, and high fluorination cannula over long distance transport be taken up for review. Staff and guest, the EMS for children, we will be updated very closely to field trauma triage guidelines. Again, and there'll be a review of pediatric adolescent agitation protocol. With a state EMS that's still in the works, and that position progressing through the civil service process. Still no feedback on the exact job description, but what those recommendations might be. So maybe we'll hear more in our next meeting. There's some talk of mental health education. There's a free education module, behavioral health and substance sort of consideration for EMS. One to email Jennifer.Salomon@health.gov. Imagine that's on our website. If someone's looked it up, right? So no need to write it down here. Lastly, I think there was a discussion to align New York State Deal protocol with the cloud protocol. I think there was discussion around the concept of having one common set of state DLS protocols. Again, this discussion will be taken up in the next meeting. That's what I have.
Are there any questions for Dr. Groby? Okay, is there any unfinished business? Okay, we have one matter of new business that I'm aware of, and that is the election, the nomination report and the election. So the nominating committee for the REMSCO met via email on June 8th. The nominating committee members were Jack Kish, Lorraine Giordano, Rafael Castellanos, Gerald Gilbert, Nancy Benedetto, and Dennis Laurie. They nominated a series of individuals for appointment as member of Lodge of REMSCO, beginning July 1st, 2022, and the terms will end June 30th, 2026 for a full year term. I will read out all the names.
Secretary can.
What's the name of the name? There's no ballot. No groups that will just-
Yeah, we have voting. Roll call vote.
Roll call for each person.
Okay, well, we can vote.
Let's see what happens. Okay, so the following individuals were nominated. Okay, Martina Bassarella, EMT, Arthur Cooper, MD, Robert Krupe, MD, Megan Foley, RN, Matt Fuchs, EMTP, Edith Langston, PhD, EMTP, and Brian Lewinsky, EMTP. Well, these people you are well familiar with. They've been members for a while. Is there any discussion? Yes. These are all reappointments. The following recommended for reappointments as an all-large member beginning July 1st, 2022. Anybody want to accept the entire slate? Yeah. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any objection to voting on this as a slate? Hearing no objection. All in favor of the slate, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Please mark that as all being voted unanimously. You don't need to waste paper. Are there any other matters for new business? Yes, Dr. Cooper.
You know, I've been thinking a good deal about this over the last few months, and I understand that, you know, the executive order that allows us to meet virtually, you know, expired and was not renewed. I do think that unlike many other state bodies, bodies like us, both at the state level and the regional level, really are, are in a unique position. We're a series of emergency providers. Many of us have duties that, really are, if not 24/7, pretty darn close. Taking time, for me, it's easy. I mean, I'm not complaining. My hospital is a 10-15 minute drive, and it's easier for me to get here and get back. But it is, it is difficult for many of us to come to these meetings on a regular basis in person. I'd like to bring before the council the idea that we petition the state to say, hey, look, emergency providers are in a different category. We all have emergencies to attend to back in our regular jobs, and there ought to be some provision that allows emergency providers to meet virtually. Now, I'm not saying that we should always meet virtually. There may be certain times when a face-to-face meeting is critical, but I do think that for most routine business, it can and should be transacted virtually. And that would save a heck of a lot of my colleagues around this table a lot of time, and trouble in traveling to a meeting, which sometimes may last, a very short time. Before I make a motion to that effect, I'd be interested to hear what others have to say.
Well, Dr. Cooper, well, in principle, I totally agree with you. It's not a matter of petitioning the state. There is a New York State law called the Open Meeting Law, which we are bound to follow. It's legal statute. And the governor explicitly declined to issue another executive officer order overriding it. So what you are really asking is to have a change in law. And that would affect not only us, but so many other councils and committees and legal bodies across the state. That's probably very impractical. And in the interest of public rights to attend and to see what is done behind closed doors, that's why this law was created. And I agree with you. I don't like driving up there. An hour and a half to drive there today. But same thing's true in college also. We're bound to have open meeting law. We have to invite the public in. We have to post ahead of time to let anybody off the street come to these meetings, including here. And I would love to make it all virtual, but it's more than just petitioning. So,
well, every move in a direction like this has to start somewhere, and I do think at the very least, getting ourselves on record as saying that emergency providers are in a different boat, than many others, and I think we should pursue this. I understood everything you're saying. I understand that it would potentially require a change in law, but at the same time, I think the public deserves to benefit not only from its access to us, but from our access to them in their hour of need. So to me, I think it's eminently worthy of running this up the flagpole.
I don't disagree.
Let's do it. So I will make a motion that we somehow run it up the flagpole.
But
We can
I'd
write
like
a
to know a
letter.
little bit more, but somehow it's not good enough.
We'll write a letter. Requesting. Would you like me to write the letter? Yes. I will.
To whom? Should we write this letter to?
Well, we have to write it,
It has to be addressed to someone.
No, I understand that. I think.
To the governor, who might be
We
the
can
right
write to the
person.
governor, we can.
Well,
write
that's the
to
only person who has the authority to change
We
it.
can write to the leaders of the health committees of the two houses. of the
They don't have a
legislature.
right to change it.
Well, if they pass a law, they can.
I think either you send it to the
You can write to the
legislature
governor and
or to
with
the
copies
governor.
to the legislative chairs, that's fine. How's that?
That's, I think, the way to do it.
Okay? I accept your advice and the motion can be amended, so amended.
Hot topic at the last stage.
Is there a second, by the way?
Is there a second? I see head shake. That's it. There's a
I'll
second.
second it.
Okay. So we will allow the staff to come up with a letter. I will glad to help write it. And we'll ask Dr. Marshall as a lawyer also to help write it. Dr. Cooper, you'll contribute
I will be happy to do so.
and we'll see where it goes. Okay, yes.
Alternatively, but in the same vein, I understand the premise of the open meeting. is that you do have to have the public space, but I don't believe that there's anything provided that people cannot participate in the meeting remotely. So as long as the staff from the REMSCO is in attendance, that the
That's not
members of the
correct.
board
That is
aren't,
not correct.
okay. I know,
But the requirements of the open meeting laws, the public has to be, you have to advertise that it's here. The public has to be able to physically attend.
yeah, so if you physically held the meeting, and not necessarily that everyone attended remotely, but some members were attending remotely, there's nothing,
Quorum must be present, and only those present can vote.
so as
There's
long as.
also, there's not only an open meeting law, but there's also the general construction law of the state of New York, okay, which says things about quorums, which we don't even get. to
Yeah,
discuss.
you need to have a quorum.
It's a very
And
complicated
it states
issue.
physically in person.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. it's-
Let me just tell you something. I educated the SEMSCO lawyer who admitted to me that he didn't know the law. And I didn't go to law school. But it's a horrible law. No, I shouldn't.
It's terrible.
No way. I have a daughter who's a prosecutor. It's enough. Yes. Wait. That's out of order. I didn't accept that. Do we have any more discussion on Dr. Cooper's motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Considers to be unanimous. We don't need a roll call vote for this. Is there any further new business? At this point, I will recognize Maury Lax.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Yay.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes.